Hi there, my name is Dmitry Omzhensky, and today we're gonna talk about design pattern in Angular called ForRoot and ForChild. If you have ever used the Angular router, you probably have already seen this pattern, but why do we need it and which problem does it solve? This is what we'll learn in this video today. But before we start to code anything, there are two preconditions, and the first one is that you have to understand, at least on the basic level, how works dependency injection in Angular. And the second precondition is that you have to have some experience already with Angular. And when the first precondition you can solve by watching this video about dependency injection in Angular, about the second one I can recommend you the course which I personally used many years ago, but it's still relevant. You can also use it, so the link will be in the description, and if you are too new in Angular, this is perfect starting point. But let's get back to our ForRoot ForChild pattern. Alright guys, I did some small preparations in order to save your time, and I generated Angular workspace by using ng-CLI, and also inside this workspace I created one application, this one, demo application, and the polling library. And they are absolutely empty, so we can have a look at the polling library, and you can see that there is pretty much nothing. This is empty service, which does nothing. This is the empty module, and as well as components. So nothing interesting here. So far we can close this polling library, and let's have a look at the demo application. And inside the demo application we have, of course, there is the app module app component, but then we have app routing also, and you can see that we have two routes. One is just for home component, and another one is a route called lazy, and it loads lazily the module which called lazy module, this one. And you can see those two modules here. The first one, component, this is the simplest module in the world. So this is just empty module with empty component. And lazy module, it's like also very simple, but it has lazy routing, which has this route there. So this is pretty much everything you have to know. Inside the app component, we have some small template. We have this router outlet, and we have the button which navigate us to lazy route. And let's have a look how it looks in the real application. So this is our application. Right, we have this button lazy load. If I click, we navigate it to the lazy route, and we see that lazy module has been loaded. Good. So now let's go back. I will close this everything so far, and let's jump to our polling library. So we all know, I hope, what is polling. So this is when we, with some interval, we request the backend for some changes, and if we have some changes, we can render this on the client side and whatever. Of course, we are not going to implement the whole polling mechanism. We will implement some faked one, but just in order to demonstrate you the use case for our pattern ForRoot. And let's go to the polling service and create one. So I will create the public method. This method is going to be the observable, and I will create this with the timer method. So like this, and it will be emit value every second as example. And then we will do the next thing. We will apply operator called share reply. Why it doesn't find it? Okay, let's import this manually. So this comes from operators, and here it's the timer. We have the share replay operator. And if you don't know what does share operator, it shares the latest value from the stream to the new subscriber. So every time it will be emit 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And when after, I don't know, third value emission, the new subscriber comes, usually it would get again 0, 1, 2, 3, but with share reply, it will get the latest value, so 3, and then it will proceed to receive the 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on, so on. So I hope it's somehow clear. Otherwise, you can read documentation about this operator. So we have this polling, right? And here is a little bit of history of Angular. Until version 6 of Angular, we didn't have this fancy feature like provided in, which is really cool. It makes our services tree shakeable, and using this provided in root, we can be sure that it will be always singleton in scope of whole application, right? But until version 6, as I said, we didn't have this option, and the only one way is to provide this inside the module, inside the providers or component providers, but yeah, whatever. So we did it like this. We used the providers, and here we provided our polling service like this, right? So in this case, we, as a author of library, we make our library easy to set up for the library consumer. So they can just import the module of our library in another module where they're going to use our library, right? And this is pretty much everything, because providers will be registered with this module. They don't have to do it manually. Of course, you can enforce them to register services on the application side, but if you have dozens of services, that's quite bad user experience, right? And we do it using we were doing this before by using these providers. So, and now let's connect our library to our application. So first of all, I have to build my library. Let's run ng build polling library, and I will build this in watch mode because I want to immediately see the changes in my application. Okay, now my library is, it's working fine. So I switch back to this console, and now let's import our polling library into our modules inside the demo app. So we go to the home, right? And inside the home module, I will import my polling module. Okay, it shows the wrong path, so I want to call the polling like this. All right, and the same thing we will do also for our lazy module. So like this, and I will import this somewhere here, and inside the imports we are going to import our polling module. So like this, and we have to use this polling mechanism somehow, right? So I will go inside the component, and somewhere here I will inject this everything, like I'm injecting polling service. Again, why VS Code doesn't recognize that this is correct import. All right, so yeah, we injected the polling service, and right here I want to write something like polling count times, and then I will subscribe to our polling polling, yeah, and I will use the async pipe in order to subscribe to this everything, right? And the same we will do inside also the home component. So polling service, again this polling, and the same I will take from this part, and maybe let's polling call times, we say it lazy in order to see that which component is being active right now. And here we will just place it like this. So I think we forgot nothing, right? So let's have a look how it looks now. Oh, you can see that polling works, so it counts things, but then we load lazy, we get probably some error. No, we already on inside the lazy. All right, let's reload. So we see that counter works. Let me open network. Then we click on the lazy, load lazy, and we see the problem that it started to count from the 0. So, but why? Because we, you may remember that we fixed this by using this share replay. So this is not something with our stream. The problem is that this is another instance of our polling service. And if you watched my video, or you just know, this how works the dependency injection in Angular, you should know that if you load module lazily like this one, it creates the child injector for this module. And because we provide our polling service within this module, which is provided into the lazily loaded module, that's why we have two different instances. First instance for lazy loaded injector, and the second one is created at the application root, because we define this in the home module, which is eagerly loaded. That's why we have two instances, and this is kind of the problem, right? Because we expect that our service is singleton in scope of the whole application. So how we, as the author of the library, could solve it? So we have to split somehow this part from the declarations, providers and declarations. And how we could do it? So this is where this ForRoot pattern comes into the play. And we can say that this module, which module it's a class, so nothing stops us to create some properties here, right? Or methods. So we can create a static method which by convention called ForRoot, right? Like this. Again, you can name it as you want. This is just a convention. And this method, this static method, returns such a thing called module with providers. And this is generic type, so we have to define which exactly module it returns. And in our case, this is polling module. So we do it like this. And of course, we have to return something. So we return the object, and this object has two properties. We have to provide ng module, which is our polling module, this one. And then we have to provide providers, which is optional, but in our case we have to provide it, and we move our this provider, so we grab it, oh damn it, we grab it, remove from this provider, and we provide it here. And then the most interesting thing, we import this ForRoot inside our app module. So we go to app module, and here we do our polling module, and then I call ForRoot. And what happened when we do like this? When we call ForRoot, we are not importing this module, the whole module. We just import this part. We provide only service in this case. Yeah. So these guys, these declarations, things like that, they are not imported with this method. All right. So we provide here only services, and because they are provided inside the app module, we can be sure that they are singletons in scope of whole application. And already inside our home module, because we import this like without ForRoot, without calling ForRoot, in this case only declarations will be imported inside the home module, and the same will be also for lazy module right here. And if we save it like this, and then we reload our application, you can see that it counts, but when I click load lazy, we see that it proceeds to count from 8. So it's the same instance of the same service, and it renders it here. So if we go back, we see that doesn't start from the 0. So this is how you could solve this many years ago until Angular 6. However, nowadays we have this nice approach with provided in. So where is this? So we can use provide in root, and in this case we don't need to care about this. So we don't need the for root anymore. It would work just fine. But let's revert thing. Revert this and revert also our injectable. However, this pattern also allows you to do another cool thing, and it allows you to configure your lazy loaded modules somewhat differently or pass some config to it. And this is exactly what Angular Router does, and we will have a look at the source code later on, how it was implemented, how they're using this pattern. But let's implement maybe such a thing like if it's a lazy module, it should polling our server not so often, not every second, but maybe, I don't know, every 3 seconds, right? Because if it's lazy loaded model, most probably for users, it's not so important to get the most latest data from the server. So we can decrease the load on the server, right? So it could be a kind of configurable model. So we can create the same static method and call it ForChild. Yeah. Again, this is just convention. ForChild, and this ForChild would have some config, and let's create some interface. I will create it inside the service. I don't want to create separate files for this, all right? But in real application, I would recommend you to split things. All right, and it has some interval property, which is just a number. And yeah, and we just have to import this interface right there. Okay, and then we also return the model ng. Oops. Yeah, we have to define the return type as well. So I will copy it from here because it's the same type, right? So that's we have, and here then inside we need to ng model, polling model, and then providers, and we have to provide, damn it, and we have to provide also polling service, yeah, because we want to have the separate instance for lazy loaded model, right? And then besides this, we want to inject maybe this interval which user will provide with this ForChild, and inside config would pass some interval, and then we want to inject our config which developers which are using our library can provide to it. And yeah, let's create the injection token for it. I will create this also here inside my service. So export, and this is going to be new injection token, which will have the number type, right? And it's going to be interval string, like this. Then we have to provide this injection token inside our polling model. So I will create the provider object, and we say that we provide interval. Here we go. And we say that use value from the config. So config interval, like this. And maybe if it's empty, let's give some default one, 2 seconds. If this is not clear for you what I have done, another video recommendation, I have the great video about this dependency provider, so check this out. But if we provided already this thing, we can do such an interesting thing and inject our this injection token to our polling service, right? Interval, and it's gonna be private, and it's going to be the number. All right, and I will do it optional as well. Optional. So here we go. And now we can use our injected interval, and instead of hard-coded one, this one, we can use it like this. So I can save it. And now if we reload this everything, we see that it doesn't count. Why? Yeah, makes sense, because when we inject this ForRoot, we don't provide this interval dependency injection token, right? So it will be empty at this time. So we have to add also the similar check. So if it's undefined, by default it should be 1 second, right? So, but yeah, I forgot another thing. Yeah, so we have to now provide our polling model we're using this ForChild. So we will go to our lazy model, and here we will say that ForChild, and it requires the config, right? So we provide it like this. I say that interval, let it be 3 seconds. Now, so we configured for lazy component we use this ForChild thing, this config, and for the home module, or where is app module, for app module we use ForRoot. So ForRoot provides nothing. We see, right? We provide only polling service, and by default it will be 1 second because it has nothing to inject. Yeah, we don't have any provider for this internal injection token here, right? So it will be the 1 second. But for lazy load, we registered our model differently. We also provide this interval. So this interval will be injected into our service constructor right here. And here will be the value which we defined inside the config, inside, where is this lazy model? This one, this what will be injected, right? And now if we, let's go back to our root. So it counts every second. And now I click load lazy, and you see it's every 3 seconds. So it's really, really lazy model. All right, so this is how you can configure. This is the ForRoot ForChild pattern in action. You can see, of course, you could handle this with only one method. You could create something like, I don't know, static with config and provide this everything. I don't know, provide a config there. Then, okay, let's implement it. So we can copy this thing here. Config, we have to copy there. So like this, right? And by default, it would be, let's say, 1 second. And now you have to, and you could do this also optional. So in this case, you would need to handle this condition, and yeah, and then you would need to use everywhere this with config. So for root, as example, you would path it like this with config. Come on, this is VS Code, somehow stupid. Yeah, so let's then config this for lazy model, and then we don't need this ForRoot ForChild. So I can save and use this just with config. Yeah, only one method then, and the same effect will be here. So that's every 3 seconds is being counted. Then damn it, I have to reload this. So you see every second, then I load lazy and it starts from the 0 first, and then it's like counts very, very slow. So this is example. I can show you also how the internals of ForRoot ForChild pattern looks in Angular router. So let's open our Angular. So this is source code of Angular, and this is our ForRoot and ForChild methods. So, and this is RouterModule. And if you open the ForRoot, you will see that they're providing, I don't know, router providers. What do you want? It provides the router providers. Then you see a lot of different services, whatever. Root guard, it means that if you're trying to import twice this router module, it will throw the error for you. And so you can see how many things are being injected. And the thing is that it should be injected only once. In this case, it will be singleton, in scope of whole application. But for child, it just returns the router module and just it provides only routes. Takes it here and use this helper in order to create our child routes. Yeah, so this is how the Angular implemented this pattern. Also, you can see the similar use case inside the NGRX library. If you are using this, you can see they have for feature static method, and this for feature method it merges you have feature, yeah, and you have to have for this feature some slice in the global store. So this for feature merges this slice into the global store, and you can safely use it with lazy loaded modules as well. So this is how they implemented this, and I'm pretty sure you saw a lot of similar use cases for this. Our polling mechanism is just one of use cases. I don't know how useful or not it is, but yeah, I hope you have now better understanding why do we need this and which problem does it solve. Alright guys, that's it for today. Just a small remark that use this pattern wisely, and in 90% of cases this is enough to use provided in property, and use this ForRoot ForChild pattern only if you really need it. And of course, share this video if you find it useful. Also leave your comments, and I wish you a productive week ahead and see you in the future.